although I'm not very good at mathematics, I am really interested in it, and I've been watching these videos by Vihart, and she seems to capture all the really cool things about it without all the really horrible stuff that I'm not very good at. And I was watching these videos and I got down to this one where she was building up this triangular shape 2D pattern in sort of iteration after iteration, which created this sort of foamy structure. And I thought I'd like to do something like that in Bryce. What's the 3D equivalent? And I discovered this object here. This is called a Menger Sponge, and well, I started testing this and ran into a few problems. So it's going to incorporate some cheating to get this effect. We can start off alright, but the limitation seems to be Bryce's ability to copy objects and not go to sleep for a while at a time, let's say. Too long for my patience anyway. So here we got a scene, infinite plane, and I'm just moving that out of the way and creating a cube, and that is our starting point. Control C, Control V, everything starts fine. Hold the Shift key down to move it across in discrete steps because we need to line this up. Control V, another cube, stick it on the end there, select all three of them, Control C, Control V, a line of 3, Control V, another line. Right, I just need to knock that middle cube out because each face is hollow. We're going for this, which is the level 1. Select the side view, that's 3, Control C, Control V, lift that up, Control V again, lift that up. Then select the middle cubes and knock them out, press 4 for the end view and knock those out, and that, I'll just move the camera around so you can see, is our level 1. Right, select all those, group them, attributes L, V, L, 1. Right, Control C, Control V, we're starting the process again. I'll just zoom back a bit. Control V, still going smoothly, you see. Select all of them, Control C, Control V, and up, and Control V, and up again. Right, and reposition and knock out the middle cube. Go to the side, select all of them, Control C, Control V, lift it up, Control V, and lift it up. Then knock the middle ones out, press 4 or 3, whichever is the remaining one, to knock those out, and this is our level 2. And practically speaking, unless you're very patient, and some people are, that's as far as we can go. So I'll group those, attributes LVL underscore 2. Right, I'll save as LVL underscore 2 M cube 1. Right, so that, I'm now going to show you the problem. Right, I select that, Control C, Control V. We could go on like this, obviously, but we run into a limitation. So I just press Control C, Control V. I've got nothing selected now. Now you see, Bryce is slowing down in between copying. It's stalled. Right, and this just gets worse when I select the next line then. And this is a moderately fast computer, and copy that, it just stalls for about 5 minutes. Won't show you that. What I'm going to do is revert to saved and show you how we can cheat and get around this limitation. So in the side view, ungroup and then ungroup the groups and then just skim off the top. Right, so we're left with 2D, and then what I'm going to do is group that lot and copy and paste, and it will copy and paste this bit alright because we've cut down the number of cubes dramatically. And then select this lot and copy and paste. So we're just dealing with one face and paste. I'm afraid though beyond this things get slow again. So here we've got a face, and what I'm going to do is select this entire face and modify the material so that it's ambient. I don't have to worry about diffusion. And then I'm going to modify the ground plane, or just turn the sky off. Actually, yes, I can just turn the sky off. So atmosphere off, set it to black, select the infinite plane, just using this selection tool here. You can select it, so that's good. Then I'm going to group all these together and set them at 0 origin. Okay, and If I look from the side view, I'll turn the horizon on, and I'll be able to see when I've just dipped them below the horizon. So that's 0 there, and then I'll take the perspective camera and set that at the origin. Okay. And then rotate that. Actually, I think I needed that ground plane, so I'll create it back again now and set that to fully black. Set the ambient, global ambient up to fully white, and then zoom in and move the ground plane down very slightly, so that when I lift the perspective camera up, now I'm getting the side of this image, because what I'm going to do is create a mask. So I need to work out how high that camera needs to be so that the field of view touches the edge of the cube, and to do that I'm going to have to modify the document setup here to be a 1:1 ratio. So that's good. To set the camera to view 90 degrees, we need field of view 90 and scale 72.5, and then we need to work out the height. So the height is going to be that length, isn't it, divided by 2? No, it's going to be equal on each side, so it's just going to be that length. So if I can find the largest group and check its attributes and capture the size of it, and then use that value in the camera for the height, and then switch to the camera view, I seem to be twice as far away, so maybe it was that value divided by 2 after all, in which case I just need to divide that by 2. And my mental arithmetic is not that good, so I'll just do the calculator. 276.481. 481. Right, that should bring me down now, so that when I render that, that gives me my mask. So I'll call that, I'll save as mcube mask. Right, and then I recall the file I had before. Just drop this in, this one, and then modify the material here, and I'm going to use transparency, blend transparency, and the picture that I've just generated as my mask. So here we go, there's the mask. Copy and paste it into the alpha channel so it can drive transparency, and it's parametric mapped already, which is suitable. So now I've been able to add lots and lots of little holes. This blue that's showing up here is a collision between the transparent layer of the lower layer of the cubes and the infinite ground plane. They're occupying the same place, and it's causing a problem. So if I lift it up and drop it back onto the surface, you can see that it's still like that, so I need to lift it up very slightly, and then that problem will disappear. So there you go. In a few short minutes we've created the illusion of a very complex geometry in Bryce. Obviously it's not perfect on these corners, but the limitations of copying and pasting mean that this is really the practical approach to it. So all that remains now is to apply some lighting, and I should have a decent looking picture. Maybe I'll put some reflection in and a HDRI backdrop, but you don't need to see me do that, because there's plenty of other videos on my channel that show you how to light things in a still life environment. So that's the end of this short tutorial. Well, clearly I thought that was going to be the end of the tutorial, and then I had another little thing, and I thought, what about using Wings 3D and combining that with instancing? Because the instancing will be just like copying cubes. Once you've made one object, then you won't have the extra overhead of the memory. So we'll give that a go, and I'll try and make it in Wings up to a certain level, the limitations of Wings, and then use Bryce and see if we can overcome, or at least equal, or slightly improve on what we've already got. So I've selected 3 of the faces of this cube, and I'm going to mirror those. So just start with a basic cube and mirror. Now I select 3 lines on this, press G, that will give me the link to the lines all the way around, and then press C, that will link those lines with a perpendicular line, and then I can loop cut, and that allows me to chop those bits off, and then we can go back to mirroring. I've tried a few different strategies, and this seems to be the best so far. So mirror that face, and mirror that face, and that gives me my level 1. I need to select the whole thing and then weld the faces, the faces together that weren't the ones that were mirrored, to give it a solid shape. Now on this corner I'm going to select those 3 and mirror them. Then I've got the similar problem with these extra bits, the halves. So if I line them up in my view, select line and drag a line across there and press minus, it'll shrink it into the lines I want to cut. And I can cut away that outside section. And the same with this. I select that, press minus and loop cut, and hopefully that'll cut away the bit I don't want. And then this section here at the top, select line, select those, press minus and loop cut. And then we're back to mirroring. So face selection and mirror and mirror and mirror. Okay, and then select the whole thing and weld it. So that'll weld me the bits together that were cut before. Right, and now we need to continue in the same vein. So we'll start on a corner and mirror those bits. Now this gets a bit fiddly. To start using some more controls. So select a face and press A, and that will align it on that face, and then I need to choose an axis, so it's either going to be X or Z. Seems to be Z. Okay, so this is the cut I need to make. So select line and carefully go along that line, then press minus once and loop cut. That'll chop me that end off. And likewise with this one, so I press A and then either Z or X, it's Z in that case. Select line, go carefully along that line, press minus and loop cut, chop that bit off there, make sure I've not picked up any artifacts. And then another face here, press A and X, it'll be this time. Select line, press space to make sure nothing else is selected that I can't see, then select my line, and then minus and loop cut. Right, let's see, will this crash or will it work? I'm starting to mirror again, so selecting a face and mirroring, selecting a face and mirroring, selecting a face and mirroring. Right, this is about the limits for wings. If we start going beyond this, then this process here, the welding process, seems to crash. Fingers crossed this time. Last time I tried it, it crashed, but then I had tried chamfering down the edges of the cubes to create, you know, a nicer effect in the render, but I'm not going so sophisticated this time. You can see it's got to non-responding, but in some cases that means it's just thinking about it, and in other cases that means it's just crashed, and it's not possible to tell unless you leave it a few minutes. So I'll go away and make myself a cup of coffee and come back and see if it's either crashed or worked. And I came back and found it was still thinking about it, and then I thought, I know what, one last try, I'll make Wings 3D large address aware, and then went through the whole process again, which you don't have to see, and then welded it again, and it thought about it for a while, and instead of crashing, it completed it. So here we have probably the most complex model we can get away with, making it in Wings 3D. Though it would have been nice to have the edges chamfered down, but never mind. And we'll export this as an OBJ file and see if that crashes it now. There's always that risk too. So it's exporting, it seems fairly happy. So the next thing then is we'll launch Bryce and we'll bring in this object. Bearing in mind when you bring in an OBJ format, it's already smoothed, so we'll have to unsmooth it. Again, further risk of crashes, so we'll import object. There's my M-cube object. We'll just check that, it doesn't really matter. And then we'll edit it and unsmooth. That seemed remarkably fast. So it must just be the welding process that was holding things up. Move that up and move the camera back and see where we are. Right, there is a bit of an issue when you bring objects in. The bounding box can be bigger than the object itself. We don't need that because we want it to be snugged up, so Control-C, Control-V. No, wrong. Not Control-C, Control-V for this first one. because this first one is going to be the master object, so we need to edit and instance. We can copy the instances with Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, but not the master object. Right now we've got our problem with the bounding box. You can see, even though I've shuffled it along as I did the original cube, there's a gap. But in this case what I'm going to do is produce all the copies and then try and work out how big I need to expand them so the gap disappears. So like by enlarging them a certain amount, I'll be able to push them together in theory. First of all, we'll build our shape and see how far we get with that. So Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V on the instances. Actually, what I should do is grab this master object, slide it out of the way so I don't accidentally copy that and then start consuming too much memory. So the best thing to do with these, I think we've got an option here in the attributes, is to show as a box, and that will, oh look, right, what's gone on there? That gap seems bigger than that gap. I must have accidentally shuffled one along too far, and that's not showing as a box anymore. Let's see what the gap situation is. Okay, that's better. I obviously had an accident there. Right, so I'll have to keep selecting a load and showing them as a box as I go along, otherwise drawing in the wireframe is going to become a limitation. Oh, this idea didn't turn out to be as simple as I hoped it would. Right, attributes, show as a box, so all those will be now shown as boxes. I'll slide the master one out of the way so I don't accidentally pick that up in the ground plane, and switch to the side view. Right, and then copy and paste, lift those up, so it's more or less the same strategy as I took before. Knock the middle ones out, a little harder to get hold of. Then switch around to the end view, there we go, and zoom back a bit, knock these middle ones out again, then select all that, and attributes, show as box, and group, and let's see where we are with this now. So we're dealing with true geometry in this case, rather than trying to fake it and cheat, but cheating in a different way I suppose. I'm going to save this, so when it crashes, as it inevitably does as I make things too complicated, we can go back. I wonder what those little black dots are there. I hope we've not got holes in the models. I'll just zoom in a bit. No, just a bit of a speckly on the render for some reason. Right, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. So I'm just copying instances now, so that should be okay. I wonder what the gap's like between these groups. Still consistent, that's good. Right. Oh, and interestingly now they're in groups, not suffering the fact that they're going back to drawing them as boxes. That's a bonus. Knock the middle one out, go to the side, CV, CV, and then knock these end groups out, and press 4, zoom back a bit, knock those end groups out. Still not crashed, that's good. Zoom back. It's getting quite a big thing. I'll probably scale it down in a bit. There's still the challenge of working out what scale they're going to be. I'll just knock the haze off. That'll hold the Alt key down and click on that, and that'll knock the haze out. So you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'll group this again, and I'll save it. It's automatically incremented the number now. I've given it a name, so that's handy. Alright, and select this group, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. So at some point it's going to start objecting to doing these copies. Ctrl+V. It's starting to get slow now. We might be reaching our limit here. Right, see what happens now. Ctrl+V. Yes, it's starting to stall. Severely. Not responding. So I guess that last one was the limit of what we can do really, practically, unless you're very patient, because it has copied it in the end, but you can see that it's getting a bit sluggish in the wireframe now and difficult to work with. Right, so what I'll do is I'll revert to saved, where we got our last one where it wasn't too slow, but it was still looking fairly detailed. Ungroup and ungroup, and now I'm going to try scaling. What's the scaling attributes? So we'll try 180 and see if that gets rid of the gap, or we need to make it slightly larger. So it was a lucky guess. There's still a little bit of a gap. So we'll try 181. And it's just trial and error. There might be a way of working it out, but I've not thought of it yet. The gap might be some consistent size. It's nearly vanished now. So we'll try 182. And this will give us a second cube. So I'll render each one, and then we can make a comparison between the two and see how things go. But this one should in theory be better, because we won't be able to see through any of the bits. That's the master one from all these instances have come from. So I'll just save that file, and then well, that's it really for building the cubes. It's just a matter of lighting them and comparing them. So I'll just stop the video at this point, set up a lighting environment, give them a render, and we'll have a look at the results when that's done. Here then, as promised, is a final render. I used obscure lighting with additional Bryce on soft shadows. I didn't use depth of field because I wanted you to see that on this example on the left here is the first cube that I made. That's the size there, or there if you like, of the cubes that it's made of, and this bit's the fake bit. So that's just a hollow cube, and you can see inside that but it doesn't look too bad. That's the object that I made in Wings 3D, and that's been scaled down to build these cubes up, so the Wings cubes are the same size as the cubes on the left here. So the limitation in copying appears to be the same, irrespective of what you're copying, these being instances, these being just standard cubes. And this looks a little bit better, but there's not much to choose between them. I suppose it was equally fiddly to make either one, and well, I think that's not a bad result really, considering the time spent. So I hope you found that tutorial interesting. You'll have a go at this yourself, and you'll have a look at some of my other tutorials.